Yo! Welcome to another Goblins and Gnomes card review. 3 cards recently revealed, 3 cool class cards. We've got Whirling, Zap-o-matic. They're really pushing the limits on this one. So 2 mana, 3/2 mech. That's probably good enough as is, like as a good baseline. But then we decide to add Wind Fury to it. So that means that if you don't have an answer to this on turn 2, you are going to get punished hard. This is definitely the most aggressively costed Wind Fury card they have ever printed. Far better than the Thrallmarth Farseer. I have to remember the card because it's no one ever plays it, the 3 mana 2/3 Wind Fury. First of all, a 3/2 Wind Fury is better than a 2/3 Wind Fury. Second of all, it costs 1 less. Third of all, it's a mech. The proper way to think of it, like when they first balanced Wind Fury, is probably they costed things so that it was a slight discount over doubling the attack. Now obviously they would never print a 2 mana 6/2, but if you don't deal with this on turn 2, then that's what it's going to be. Easy card to put into aggressive Shaman decks with a mech theme. Without a mech theme, it's actually not as ridiculous as it seems because we've already been conditioned that if you don't deal with a turn 1 Undertaker, which has 2 health, you're going to lose. So you should be able to deal with something on turn 2, which is 2 health, or you're going to lose. So it'll see play in Shaman mech decks, and it'll see play in aggressive decks, and it might see play in semi-mech decks, and it probably won't see play in non-mech decks and in control decks, because a 2 mana 3/2 has no use in a control deck. If a Shaman control deck is a thing, but I'm just covering all my bases because I think this expansion is going to add a lot more deck archetypes. In Arena, this card will be a high pick. Like, Bloodfen Raptor is already above average. This card is far above Bloodfen Raptor because not only is it a mech, it is also one of those, if your opponent stalls and doesn't have a 2-drop, they'll lose the game type card. They won't lose the game, but they'll take 6 damage. It's kind of like those Raging Worgen situations, where sometimes the Raging Worgen gets enraged and they don't have an answer and then you win. Whirling Zap-o-matic is that, except you don't need any help from your opponent or from yourself. So, pretty good. Next up, we got the Snowchugger, which is the 2 mana mech card for Mage, and you're starting to see a cycle, right? We've got like high quality 2-drops from every class, it seems, which are mechs. So that kind of pushes each class to be viable with mech. This little guy is pretty annoying, which is good. 2 mana 2/3 mech, like that by itself should be fine, just because mech matters. Freeze any character damaged. It's a nice effect. Good in an aggressive deck because you can lock down something. Possibly good in a control deck because it's an early game card which will lock down things. Against the Hunter metagame right now, I would want to play this in Mage because 3 health on 2 mana is really big, and you can play that, kill off like a Leper Gnome, and then you freeze like a Loatheb sometime, and then you prevent 5 damage to yourself later. Like, that exact scenario happening is pretty slim, but that's just one of the applications of Snowchugger. Like the usual 2 mana mech cards, if you're playing a mech deck, it would be tough not to include the 2 mana class card in there. Semi-mech deck, this one might make the cut. I don't think this makes the cut in a non-mech deck, though. And in Arena, the usual thing applies. This is a 2 mana 2/3. Not so great, but it's mech, which means it should be good when comboed with all the other mech benefits cards. And the ability is itself good enough. And I would say this is like better than Bloodfen Raptor. Even though I like 3/2s more than 2/3s, the ability makes it up for me. Plus the mechiness. Like, even if you have no mech, it's probably better than Bloodfen Raptor in Arena. And whoa! Gahz'rilla! There are not many cards to compare this to, first of all. This is a 7 mana card, which is one of the mana costs which has traditionally been very non-played in Hearthstone. Other than Druid, I can't think of many 7 mana cards that are played. Ancient of War. I really cannot think of any. Okay, Baron Geddon. So here's one that might get played. The stats are really reasonable as is. It beats the Boulder Fist Ogre test because 6 mana, 6/7, add a mana, add 2 health, that's fine. It's a beast, which is nice. With this card, I definitely see much more use for that other recently previewed Hunter card, Call for Help, where you pay 2 mana, make a draw a card if it's a beast, costs 4 less. Yes, you can get the turn 2 call, turn 3 Ghaz'rilla. That's pretty awesome. Just off of the stats, I think, well, I mean, if it was just a 7 mana 6/9, it probably would not see play. But double its attack, so 7 mana 12/7, would that see play? I'm not sure it would. Let me put it this way, this card looks really good. Potential is insane, but this is one of those cards which I will say is probably overvalued. It wouldn't fit in the current Hunter deck, which is really popular right now, pre-Goblins and Gnomes. Like, the card is not actually good enough to make the cut in that deck, as it is too slow. I think it's completely reasonable to put this in a Beast Hunter deck, and if a Control Hunter deck rolls around, this card might make the cut. And it's interesting that I'm saying might make the cut. Yeah, it would probably make the cut. You'd probably build a Control Hunter deck with something like Pyromancer, like some spells to trigger the Pyromancer, and then your Ghaz'rilla, which also can get like Pyro comboed. There's a lot of people like suggesting some truly degenerate things you can do with Ghaz'rilla, but remember what you have to do is you have to play Ghaz'rilla, and then you pass the turn. Usually you'll spend most, if not all, of your mana on Ghaz'rilla. Your opponent gets a turn to try to deal with it, and then if it gets back to your turn, you need to have a deck that is built such that you can do all the ridiculous things that people are proposing, like Elven Archers or Pyromancers or what have you. If you just treat it like a Gurubashi Berserker, it's not... I mean, it's definitely a significant upgrade on Gurubashi Berserker, but not even that much. It's just, it has the problem that it costs a lot of mana, doesn't do anything immediately, and though it has a lot of health, which is a huge bonus, it's just a slow card. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great card design. I would just warn, I guess, on people thinking that this card is insane. In Arena, this card will be really good, since 7 mana for 9 health is really, really strong in Arena. You're generally looking for the stats, and this will be one of the higher end legendaries. Burly Rockjaw Trogg. An interesting little card here. So 4 mana, 3/5 with a useful ability is pretty standard for that power level. Now I look at this card and I wonder, well, I mean, that's not really good against Miracle, which is kind of what people know casts a lot of spells, because Miracle will just kill it with something like Sap or something like Eviscerate. So I have to think about, when are the situations where the opponent casts a spell and it's not to kill Burly Rockjaw Trogg? I guess in that respect, it kind of has Spell Taunt. Like, if you play it, your opponent will feel obligated to kill it with spells, otherwise you'll have a 4 mana 5/5 or 4 mana 7/5. But still, it's kind of weak individually. It's not good against Zoo, Hunter, etc., those type of decks which will kill it with minions. Overall, I don't see this card getting much play, because it is when your opponent casts a spell. You can't really control what your opponent does, and when your opponent casts a spell, I anticipate that he will be killing your Burly Rockjaw Trogg. In Arena, I think this card will be worse than Taw's Dingo. A 4 mana 3/5 is never too bad, even if it had no ability, but you tend to want to have a useful ability tied onto it. In Arena, this card will be like average to slightly below average, I'd say.
Goblins and gnomes. Goblins and gnomes. Both are super brilliant, but you would never know. Everything they seem to make is salty or explode.